Okay, good evening. This is the Chicago Computer Society January 2026 Linux SIG meeting. Tonight we got a real full slate. Handout I may have to improvise because it's so big again. Uh, Offhand, I'm going to open up the floor for any questions, problems, etc. that people are facing and or comments about things that are changing in our Linux world. Let's not get too sidetracked with Windows. Okay, Dennis.
I um I have some SD cards that I put in my Linux box a few days ago, and um, I couldn't find how to unmount it. So I started doing some Googling, and it seemed to be telling me from multiple sites that SD cards are somehow different when you disconnect them than USB thumb drives and stuff like that. Like SDs are somehow different. And then I found people were having this back and forth on how to properly take off, unmount, well, safely remove an SD card. And some people said you have to go in a mount, unmount thing. Other people said, oh, no, you can just right click on it, see the word eject, and click on that. And some people said, well, no, that doesn't. Some people said there's a difference between that some ways you can maybe not see an SD card there anymore. It doesn't look like it's connected, but it really is. And it may not be safe to pull it out unless you do it a certain way. So I want to know, is there a certain way for an SD card that's secured? There seem to be differences of opinion about it.
The they're both right. They're both wrong in a certain sense. It depends upon circumstance. Eject does work for a USB device before pulling it out. Otherwise, Linux will complain. Uh, it would just take an installed SSD. It's still there. It's just not seen and recognized. And so you have that issue. Whereas unmounting truly unmounts it, but it may not necessarily be safe to remove the drive with the electricity on when it's in a run state. You have the chance of causing damage to the drive. Bob?
A lot depends on what desktop environment you're using because different file managers handle this differently. My experience with Mint is that when you right click, you get an eject option. Eject does work for both flash drives and SD cards, depending on your hardware. An SD card could be mounted as eMMC memory. It could be mounted as a USB removable. Those are two very different things. If it's mounted as eMMC memory, you better unmount that before you try to remove it.
Yeah, like I say, when you're talking, if I remember correctly, Dennis, you have a Optiplex 5050. Internally, there is one or at least one and some models of SFF computers may have two M.2 ports. The bad part is electricity is going through them you are tied in to the computer bus when you have an M.2 plugged in. Same for a SATA drive using the power connector and a serial cable. You are connected into the hardware. If that hardware is running and you try and remove those, it doesn't matter whether you ejected or unmounted, you still have electricity going through the device. That's the big difference with that and a USB device. Any kind of USB device you plug in, when you say eject, it says, I will complete any unwritten stuff in the buffer to the device first and then allow you to remove it without scrambling the content of the USB device. But USB devices are made to be removable. And it doesn't cause a problem with a running system to pull out the USB cord and have an electrical issue occur. But when you are internal, any of the internal drives are strictly connected to your power. And if you have it turned off, even though it's plugged in, usually you're okay for most devices. But there are devices that you cannot mess with a power cord plugged in. Say you wanted to check out the CPU chip. That's a no-no. You got to have it totally unplugged. So you have to be real cautious when you're dealing with an open chassis computer that's running, what you can and cannot mess with. And I know you're holding up something there, but I can't make out what it is.
It's I put the SD card into here.
Okay,
And
but that's a USB device.
would it be considered? That's what I want to ask next, because you got me thinking. Would this be considered USB?
It is
Even though,
it is USB because it's got a USB Type A or Type C connector. Period.
so this wouldn't be the same as plugging into a normal SD port. This is different, and
No,
this
no,
is
no,
okay.
no. Be careful now. That's treated there as a USB removable device. Now, if you're saying you're playing with SD cards like you get in a camera, that's a removable device also if there's a built-in port in the computer. So you can eject that card first by the internal file explorer type application to eject the card. All that does is it makes the device invisible. Then you press in on the SD card in some cases, and a spring loading will help you remove it, or you can just straight pull it out. And the device you have, you can probably just straight pull it out, but you should eject it first, because if you don't do the ejection first in the file manager, bottom line is it can have stuff still in the right buffer that has not been written out to the device and therefore cause file corruption. So that's ejection makes sure that everything not written yet gets written out properly and then allows you to remove the device.
Yeah, this isn't an SD card that has pictures. I have a CPAP machine, and these CPAP machines, they use SD cards to record your readings. So yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of a
okay.
medical device. Yeah.
It's just a case where the SD cards that are the reader A lot of computers, especially laptops, may have an SD card reader. That's
Okay.
built in,
Okay.
but most of them are okay electrically. So you just do the eject in the file manager, make sure that everything got written out properly, and then remove the device.
Okay.
But if it's an internal one, you may not be able to do that. Bob?
Yeah, I about adapters. They're seen the same way as flash drives. I That means it will behave just like a flash drive.
Yes,
It
but
uses the same port, the same disconnects, the same unmounts, and the same eject. Usually it will show up as safely remove.
yeah,
I and you have to wait until it says, you'll get some kind of a notification, a pop-up that'll say it is safe to remove it, or something that says no, it's in use.
yeah. The same thing exists under Windows, but Windows seems to be more forgiving, pulling out the device without ejecting. However, it is not foolproof, and you can scramble a drive on Windows. But in Linux, it's more dangerous because of the way they manage the read write buffers in the Linux operating system in comparison to Windows. And therefore, it's more dangerous not to do the eject. The eject is very, very important. And that's why a lot of Linux says if you pull out the device like you're on Windows, it's going to scream bloody murder, figuratively speaking. And that's to stop you from a bad practice that can cause corruption on the USB device. By the way, I don't know what the track record is for sure, but SD cards versus flash drives, like a regular USB type flash drive, uh, that might be a debatable issue. Neither one is that reliable. They do tend to last a pretty good time with a pretty good life, but it depends upon the type of flash media that you get, and SD cards are known for wearing out pretty fast. So you have to understand that it has limited life, but it's better than a floppy disk. But both media do eventually wear out. The read-write cycles on flash memory used in USB devices is very low compared to the flash memory used in SATA SD drives as well as NVMe type drives. Those have much, much higher ratings, especially the newer it is compared to, say, 5 years ago, what was made then, let alone 10 years ago. And I go back with some of my media uh, about 10 years. No, actually more than 10. I started changing out spinning hard drives as I could afford it uh, somewhere between 2012 and 13. And it was a slow operation that I did, but I hardly had any machine that was had the OS on a spinning hard drive. Almost everything I've had for years is on an SSD. Okay. Anybody else got any other issues? Okay. Last month came up with a question about virtual desktops. I have lots of different versions, Arch based, RPM based, as well as Debian based systems. All of them have at least one virtual desktop, and I've only seen one with one. I have seen a few with two virtual desktops as a default. Most of them have four, but you can add and subtract virtual desktops at will. The question that came up was being able to use them. Well, guess what? They're usable right off the bat. And you do not need the, let's see here. I got to switch a computer here so I can get to my desktop. Share the, oh, I've already got share on. Okay. I'm gonna go in a blank area here, and if you go up to applets on the menu, can you see that? Okay. Now, if you go down, as Bob brought out, there is Windows Workspace Switcher. It may or may not be installed as a default, but under downloads, if it's not there, you can download Workspace Switcher. Then you come back to Manager, you click on this area here, hit the plus key, and it puts the check mark in saying it's active. This will create the icons down in the bottom here of virtual desktops. And I have four. And that's pretty standard on Mint and many others. However, and the reason why I didn't remember this right off the bat is because there are keyboard shortcuts you can use. I seldom use them, at least not for switching workspaces. However, if you come over and get into settings, system settings, and what you're looking for here in the software, the preferences here, is hot corners. Now, hot corners, I use 3 out of the 4, and in KDE, you get about 8 possibilities. And I'm not joking when I say that, because besides the 4 corners, you get the top, the sides, and even the bottom in the middle of each of those, besides the corners. On mine, the upper left corner will show all workspaces. So if I come up here to the top corner, I don't know if it's going to do this or not. Hang on a minute. Yeah, you're going to, this thing's going to play with me. I can see that right now. No, I don't want that. That's something new too that I haven't dug deep into. Come on. Will you quit? This thing is driving me bonkers. Get lost. No, I don't want you up there. Darn it. Go back into settings and go to hot corners. But generally speaking here, I've got the bottom left one to show the desktop, kind of like you can do with the right corner on Windows if it's set. At one time, Microsoft deactivated it, and then I reactivated it. And then my upper right corner is set to show all open windows, so I can select what window I want bring to the forefront. But why this is not working at the moment, I'm assuming it has to do with I'm on Zoom and I'm sharing the screen. That's my speculation, and I got no other answer as to why. But normally speaking, if I go up there, you would see all workspaces that are available, and you can select whatever one you want for whatever you want to do. If I go into the upper right corner, it will show me all the open windows. Like I hold down the control key, hit tab, like in Windows. It works also in Linux, at least in Mint. And it will show you all the open windows. You select the one you want, and it'll be brought into focus on top of all the other open applications. So that's something I wanted to clarify a little bit. I don't need to have these icons down on the taskbar showing the various desktops. I can use the hot corners to gain the same control and not have some of my real estate on the panel tied up with these icons. Even though they're very hard for you to see, they're also a little easier for me to see on my local display, but still they're not the easiest until you have something open on your desktop. Then it created a little gray thing there. It's saying I'm in workspace 3 right now, not in workspace 1. So if I go to workspace 1 and I click on it, it should switch me. There's workspace 1. It didn't close what I opened up there in workspace 3. It's still sitting there, and it has graded more, but there it is. So you have some indication down here with these icons for the virtual desktops to give you an idea which ones you're using and which ones you're not using. Dennis.
I just set that up using that the applets thing you showed. I just did it a few days ago, and I got all four of them down there appearing, and I can go back and forth. So I think it's really neat. I like that. But my one question I have is, when you have all four of them open, I didn't have a chance to play with it. When you have all four of them open at once, can you drag an application from one to the other, or no? You
Yes.
have to.
You can, but it doesn't work always the way you think it will. And it's better to try and launch it in the specific window you want it to first,
Okay.
instead of trying to drag and drop. It usually will work, but not 100%. That's the best way I can phrase it. Now, another little tip to give you, I'm going back to settings. This is something I kind of discovered during our little holiday hiatus over Christmas and into the new year, since we didn't have a meeting until the 13th. By the way, January 13th must have been a Friday, because Microsoft gave out second month in a row bad update, and man, is it causing a nightmare. And they now have hot patches, but you have to know the exact KB number. Go to the Microsoft update catalog yourself, put in the KB number, and download it yourself and install it yourself to get rid of a lot of the problems. And there are some issues still not resolved. They're even saying take the January update and uninstall it. And Microsoft also gave prior to that two other prior updates that go back in December to remove as well. But once they get the hot patches in normal updates, it should resolve a lot of the issues. But there are a couple that they have not figured out how to resolve this yet. And I've got something towards the end of the meeting that I'll bring up in light of the issue. But one of the things that came up as a surprise, if you come down to settings, hardware, click on mouse and trackpad. Now, on this machine, I only have a mouse. It's a desktop type unit, but I've also got laptops that I've done with a trackpad, and occasionally I may use a mouse because of some maybe hardware or driver issue with the trackpad. So, what's the thing? Middle click. GNOME is threatening to remove it because nobody's using it. Well, most people don't even know it exists. And what it is on the mouse here, this third line here, actually fourth line, excuse me, turn it on, and for this one here, you click both the left and right mouse buttons to simulate a middle click. And let me get to the touchpad first, and then I'll give you why. The next thing is touchpad, in case you got a laptop or you got a USB connected touchpad. They do exist in the market instead of using a regular mouse. Come here, default device behavior, which is nothing. Click it, come down here, and use the bottom entry. Use multiple fingers for right and middle click. So even with a touchpad, if I hit the touchpad with 3 fingers simultaneously, and that's the trick, you got to learn how to do it, it will simulate a middle click or a right click, depending on what it appears you're trying to do. So if you want the likelihood of the context menu of a desktop icon, it'll treat it as a right click. If you, in other circumstances, it will treat it as a middle. Why is that significant? Let's see if I can. All right, now, let's see here. All right, now, yeah, go here. Okay, we got Zoom Workplace for Linux. I'm going to highlight it. Whoops. Now I'm going to click both buttons on the mouse. It disappeared. Wonder what happened. I'll go down here. I'll open up a notepad. And I'll, right here, I did both buttons again, middle click. It did a automatic copy, unhighlight, paste to the other location. This is easier than all the other methods of copy and paste. The only thing it doesn't do, with a keyboard, I can do a Control X to cut, as well as the right click menu, I can select cut instead of copy. But this middle click does not do a cut. It just does a copy of something and paste it wherever you point to. That's a writable situation. So that was another little gotcha. Now, hopefully that gives you something else to think about. And I'm going to have a problem with this. Oops, wrong way. Actually, I'd like to move that over. All right, now, a little tidbit note, and I don't know how many of you are even thinking about getting another computer. Dell, because of all the nightmares going on with 24H2 and now 25H2, is having a decline in the sales of some of their units if Windows is on it. So they are giving the option now of buying a Dell with Linux installed. Now, I don't know if they restrict it to one version or you get to select one of several or what. But if you want to buy a Dell with Linux instead of Windows on it, you can do that more easily than in the past. Any further ideas, comments, problems, questions? Ooh, boy, you guys are real deadbeats. I guess I'm the only one awake tonight.
By the way, what Dell has been using, and I just double checked this by looking in a search. What the Linux they use is Ubuntu.
It isn't working?
It is their brand of Ubuntu, however.
Oh,
They
okay.
control the App Store.
Okay. Well,
But it is Ubuntu, and you can expand it to full Ubuntu.
okay. Well, offhand, it was news item, I think towards the end of December or beginning of January that I came across. Uh, yeah, that, but okay. No, I didn't know it was okay. Um, News item that's going to come up here is Photoshop may start having a crack in Linux. Uh, it was announced in January. Wine 11 adds WoW 64 support. And somebody who has been probably dying to get Photoshop to work on Linux has proof of tweak or modification, call it a patch, to the Wine 11 that will actually make version 2021 and 2025 versions of Photoshop work on Linux. He has moved them up to Wine team who are reviewing it. So, and he is studying further to get possibly more of the Adobe suite to also work in it. There's a program called Affinity. It's a photo editing program that was bought out by Canva, and they are trying to take Canva is already available on Linux. They're going to try and get Affinity working on. So these two and one other are the major holding blocks for Windows people and Mac people to stay with those platforms and not try Linux. And so sometime this year, those two may become available for real on Linux. Now, it doesn't mean that there may not be problems. I'm sure there'll be some gotchas no matter how you look at it. But if the majority of it works, who cares? I also learned from the same news item that there is a photo P, and I don't know how it's whether it's just a letter P or PEA or what, and a vector P, and these have the majority of Photoshop functionality now on Linux, but not absolutely everything. Depending on your wants and needs out of Photoshop, the Photo P may serve all your needs for the Photoshop stuff. Vector P is for doodlers, people who use a graphics tablet or possibly a USB connected touchpad that's got a large pad area with a stylus to do drawings, vector type drawings. So that's of interest. Last month, Earl McCoy brought up about Calabra Office, and that it has some, I'll call it polish to LibreOffice, but they have much the same kind of capability. There are tons of templates available, but as Earl noted, and I confirmed, that you can create and modify new documents in Calabra, but old documents, say from LibreOffice or only Office, may not work. It's a file sharing capability, because you got to understand Calabra Office is a flat pack. That means it's in a container that has a sandbox to prevent contamination. I used Flat Seal that I brought up in a prior meeting, changed one permission, and I could open up any of my old documents in Calabra Office. And I did send a message to Earl about that. Offhand, I'm gonna, if there's no other questions or such, I'm gonna get into the presentation. By the way, there may be 130 or 40 entries in the handout, and my suspicion is I will not be able to send it through chat, because there's a 20 or 25 kilobyte limit, and this is a 37 kilobyte. But I think I have an alternative way of getting it out besides email. All right, now let's see if I can blow my mind a little bit more. We got that. Oops. Let's see if we can break that. Yeah. This is the news article, and this I just got this afternoon, and I forgot to change a setting. Come on, cooperate. As soon as I try to do it. All right.
Managed to get modern Adobe Photoshop installing on Linux with some new wine patches. Plus, MX Linux 25.1 is out with multi-init support, and CachyOS dropped a new ISO with fresh kernels and desktop updates. Also, Zorin OS 18 just hit a big milestone with over 2 million downloads. And there's a new convergence phone project called NextPhone that claims that it can run Android, Linux, and even Windows. All of this and more on This Week in Linux, the weekly news show that keeps you up to date with what's going on in the Linux and open source world. Now let's jump right into your source for Linux Good News. This episode of Twill is sponsored by Sandfly Security. More on them later. So this is one of those stories that sounds fake at first, but it's real. A community developer has figured out how to get modern versions of Adobe Photoshop to install and run on Linux using Wine. And this includes Photoshop 2021 and Photoshop 2025. Now, people have been able to get Photoshop to run on Linux in the past, but typically this is very old versions because the Creative Cloud installer has been a major roadblock for years. But this week, that part has been solved. The patches target specific Windows components that Adobe relies on, like MS HTML and MS XML, which handle the installer's HTML, JavaScript, and XML configuration files. Wine historically struggled with those pieces, so the installer would just break. The developer tweaked Wine to better mimic older.
How does your screen look as far as the text that's showing?
Terrible.
Blurry.
Yeah, but it's only on one machine. The other machine, everything looks perfect. Hang on a minute here. Let's see if I can figure out what the heck's going on.
Subtitles are okay though.
Mine look pretty choppy. Right now, with it stopped, it looks better. But I don't know exactly what's happening here. Let me double check something here. I don't have virtual backgrounds. All right. Come on. This thing's not giving me all my stuff. Let's try that off. See if that does any better.
Internet Explorer behavior and fixed how XML data and IDs are handled. And that was enough to make the Creative Cloud installer complete successfully. Once installed, the developer claims that Photoshop 2021 runs smoothly, though there are still some quirks, and reports on Photoshop 2025 are mixed. This is all unofficial, requires compiling a patched version of Wine from source, and of course there's no native Linux build from Adobe, so mileage may vary, but the patches have been submitted upstream to Wine, and they're not been merged yet, but there's still some, there's a lot of effort and a lot of interest, so we'll see what happens there. The Creative Cloud installer working at all is a big deal, and it opens the door for other Adobe apps to potentially run on Linux in the future. In fact, there's also a report by the same developer that he was able to get Adobe Collections to load as well. Now, again, this is for power users and experimenters, so it's not going to be an average user's or a beginner user's path to get Adobe Photoshop to work on Linux, but this is a very promising development when it comes to one of the biggest creative blocks for people switching to Linux, because let's face it, a lot of people use Photoshop. In fact, I used to use Photoshop for years when I did website design, graphic design, and all that sort of stuff. And even when I switched to Linux, I kept a virtual machine of Windows exclusively to run Photoshop. But I've been happily, and I mean happily, using something else for years now. And that something else is Photopea. Photopea.com. And for me, it's at least 90% as good. Now, it's not going to have absolutely everything that Photoshop has because Photoshop continues to develop, and Photopea is a much smaller team. So Understandably, it doesn't have everything, but it is so good for what it is. And the price is completely reasonable. It's like $50, something like that per year. I don't remember exactly the details, but it is ridiculously good price. And it also does all the fundamental features that I want from Photoshop, like smart objects, smart filters, masking, all that sort of stuff. Like the layer systems are like, not of course layer system, but I mean like layer styles. And there's a ton of things that Photopea can do that is Photoshop is known for. So it's a fantastic thing. And anybody who is interested in switching to Linux and is worried about Photoshop being supported, check out Photopea. I think there's a huge likelihood that you'll be able to switch over with Photopea. And by the way, they also have a vector system called VectorP. So for those who are Illustrator users. Anyway, so it's had the fundamental features that I've needed from Photoshop. So I haven't even considered Photoshop for long enough that I don't remember the last time I used it. However, a lot of people are still stuck in the Adobe Vortex. So this is great news that chips away at one of the biggest blockers, keeping creative professionals off of the Linux desktop. So if you must use Photoshop because the company you work for requires you to, then this would be really good news for you. But if you don't have that requirement, check out Photopea. It's really good. And very well done to the developer who did this work of Files Basement. I think that's how it is. Really cool work to see because Photoshop is one of the biggest blockers for creative professionals. And it's awesome to see that it's maybe not going to be a blocker anymore. 2 months ago in November, MX Linux released version 25. This was a big update to the distro as they upgraded the base from Debian 12 to Debian 13. Now, we didn't cover it on Twill at the time because, well, I was hit by a car, but this limited my video output quite a bit, and I'm back now on Twill making weekly episodes, so let's cover MX Linux, especially since 25.1 came out this week. MX Linux has a new point release with MX Linux 25.1, and it's a pretty interesting one because it leans into flexibility more than most mainstream distros. Now, this release is based on Debian 13.3 Trixie and ships with the Linux 6.18 LTS kernel. Now, by default, MX Linux uses sysv and it, but they also have an interesting approach of supporting multiple init systems out of the box. So you can also use systemd. Now, this feature was actually removed from the previous release with MX25 due to technical issues. And also they announced this back in August of last year because there were some technical issues making it not possible to have them, both of the init systems running on the same ISO, so they had different ISOs based on the init system. But with this point release, they've brought it back. The project calls this the init diversity, and they've improved tooling to make switching and managing these init systems even smoother. Now, that is not going to matter to most users, but while being a niche feature, it matters to some people who want to avoid systemd or just want to experiment with various init systems. So this is a really interesting approach to Linux distro building. On the desktop side, MX Linux 25.1 includes updated versions of XFCE, KDE Plasma, and Fluxbox. Along with installer improvements, there have also been updated drivers, better hardware support, and tweaks for performance and stability that they inherited from Debian 13. Now, it's not the flashiest of releases, but reinforces MX's identity as a stable, user-friendly distro that also gives power users unusual control over core system components. CashUS has a new January 2026 ISO release, and it continues the project's focus on performance and modern desktop features on top of Arch Linux. Now, this release brings updates across the board. It has refreshed packages and kernel options and all sorts of stuff. And one of the headline changes, though, is KDE's new Plasma Login Manager is being used, not only in the KDE edition, but also in the live ISO, because the ISO has been switched to Plasma Login Manager, as well as being switched away from X11 to Wayland now. The distro ships with multiple optimized kernels, including variants tuned for different CPUs, and continues to use aggressive compiler optimizations and performance patches. Now, that's basically the core identity of CashUS, squeezing extra performance out of Arch without making users configure everything manually. Now, about that KDE edition, so that the new Plasma Login Manager replaces the older SDDM setup. Now, SDDM is fairly old, but also it's not that well maintained. It's not like there's not a ton of features being built for it and that sort of thing. And it's not really directly built for KDE Plasma. It's just something they were using. So this was actually something we talked about on a previous episode of Twill, where KDE has been working on a new login manager, and this is now ready to go. So CachyOS is implementing it. Now this aims for tighter integration with Plasma 6 and also a smoother login process. There are also updated desktop packages, newer Mesa and graphic stacks, and refresh tooling for installation and system management. Now, if you're into performance-focused Linux setups with minimal manual tuning, this is a really solid snapshot of where CachyOS is heading. And CachyOS is definitely a really nice option for those who want to have a rolling release system, who want to have the performance enhancement stuff, not that kind of performance enhancement, but like like improved performance for the kernel and stuff like that. Anyway, CachyOS is a really good distro. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to do that. You'll find links in the show notes. As Linux users, we know what's up. Security is non-negotiable. But with threats evolving faster than ever, your security tools need to keep up without dragging your system down. Traditional agents, well, they slow you down and create stability risks. And it's time for a smarter approach. That's why This Week in Linux is proud to be sponsored by Sandfly Security, the agentless security platform designed for Linux. Not just also supports Linux, designed for Linux. Sandfly doesn't just detect and respond. It transforms security with SSH key tracking, password auditing, and drift detection, covering threats from every angle. Whether your systems are in the cloud, on-premises, or in embedded devices, Sandfly ensures they're all secure without the headaches of agent-based solutions. And if your company is interested in FLY, listen to what Timothy Lisko, the Deputy CISO at DigitalOcean, has to say. Sandfly is one of the most exciting pieces of security tech I've seen recently. We're excited to not only no agents, no downtime, just cutting-edge protection. Dive into the future of Linux security at thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. That's thisweekinlinux.com/Sandfly. PikaOS has a new January 2026 update, and this one is a pretty big refresh across the whole stack. The project rebuilt a massive chunk of its packages, updated the kernel, refreshed desktop environments, and pushed new ISO snapshots for users who want a clean install. The latest ISO focuses heavily on package rebuilds and syncing with upstream. The distro ships with Linux 6.18 kernel, updated Mesa, and newer versions of major desktops like GNOME 49, KDE Plasma 6.5, and Budgie 10.10. PikaOS continues to ship multiple editions, including GNOME, KDE, Hyperland, and Neri, targeting gamers and power users who want modern desktops out of the box. If you're not familiar with PikaOS, well, it's built on Debian with custom compiled packages, tuned kernels, and a focus on performance and gaming. It's similar in spirit to things like Nobara and CachyOS and things like that, but with a Debian base and its own tooling layer. This update is mostly about refreshing the base and keeping everything cutting edge, not necessarily introducing a single big flagship feature, but if you count all the different updates from the various different desktops, there's a lot of new features. And if this sounds good to you, you'll find links in the show notes for PikaOS 2026 January release. I don't think they have a version number similar to like other rolling release type distributions. So that's, the latest one. Check out the latest one. Zorin OS 18 was released in October of last year, and I talked about that release on Twill 328. But I wanted to talk about it again this week because Zorin OS just hit a pretty big milestone. Zorin has announced that they have crossed 2 million downloads. That's a strong signal of it continuing to be one of the most popular Linux distros for beginners. Zorin OS 18 introduced a revamped desktop, updated Zorin appearance layouts, and a polished onboarding experience aimed at people switching from Windows. The team also put a lot of work into performance, Flatpak integration, app compatibility, and a lot more to make it as enticing as possible for people who are switching away from Windows. Hitting 2 million downloads shows that their strategy of targeting newcomers with a polished experience is working. And it's also a reminder that beginner-friendly distros still play a big role in Linux growth. Zorin, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and others are often the first touch point for people who are leaving Windows. And with the end of Windows 10, It's been a strong motivator for people switching to Linux, as well as many other things just in Windows 11 in general, giving tons of reasons for people wanting to switch. And Zorin has been there to be an option for those people, and based on the continued path Microsoft seems to committed to making their users hate being their users, Linux is likely to continue to grow among these people, and Zorin continues to be a solid option for those people wanting to switch to Linux. ReactOS just hit a pretty wild milestone. The project is celebrating 30 years of development, which is kind of insane for an open source operating system that's basically trying to re-implement Windows from scratch. ReactOS started in the mid-1990s as a free and open source Windows compatible OS, inspired by the old free Win95 project. The goal has always been to recreate the Windows NT architecture so Windows drivers and applications can run natively without needing Microsoft's code. That's a massive technical challenge, and it's why ReactOS has taken decades and is still considered alpha software for the most part. But to mark this anniversary, the team published a retrospective on the project's history, challenges, and milestones, and there's been some recent technical progress too. For example, work landed on asynchronous networking connection handling, which improves how the system handles network connections and modern application behavior. ReactOS is not likely to be available for day-to-day use anytime soon, or maybe even ever due to the level of complexity it is, but it is a very important project from a research and engineering perspective, so congrats to the team, and here's to many, many more years. There's a new Linux-friendly smartphone project that's popping back up, and it's called the Next Phone, NEX phone. This is, I say that because popping back up is because it's a revival of an older concept, but now the team is pitching a convergence-focused phone that can boot Android or Linux and act like a desktop when it is docked. The idea is that you use it as a normal Android phone on the go, then plug it into a dock or an external display and boot into a full Debian environment with a desktop interface and all that. It's basically trying to be similar to Canonical's Ubuntu phone convergence, but using mainstream Android hardware with a Linux option layered on top. The Debian portion runs as an app with GPU acceleration on top of Android. And when you connect the phone to a monitor and a keyboard and mouse, well, you basically get a full Linux desktop experience with Debian. The company says the goal is to bridge mobile and desktop computing with Linux apps and a full desktop environment. There's also marketing it towards developers and Linux enthusiasts and people who want more control over their device compared to locked down Android phones. If that wasn't interesting enough for you, well, this phone can also boot into Windows 11. In fact, Next Phone has created its own custom grid-based UI for the Windows side of things. But when you connect it to a monitor, well, you can load a full Windows desktop experience for some reason if you want to. This is still very early and mostly in announcement and concept stage, but it's interesting because convergence phones keep coming back every few years. Now, whether Next Phone actually ships and delivers on the dual boot Debian experience is the big question here, but it shows there's still demand for a phone that can double as a Linux workstation in your pocket. And it's a really cool concept. Especially when Ubuntu announced it, I thought it was a really cool concept. And personally, I've wanted something like this ever since Ubuntu was trying to do this. And I still want it. But I've been waiting so long that at this point, I'd just be happy with a reliable smartphone that isn't tracking everything I do. Wouldn't that be nice? GamingOnLinux.com is reporting that there is a big milestone that was just hit for the Steam Deck, and they say that more than 25,000 games are now rated playable or verified for the Steam Deck, which is massive. Also, the rate of which these games are being verified is increasing more and more. So, it took 7 months to go from November 2024 to June 2025, and in that period it went from 17,000 to 20,000, so a jump of 3,000 games in those 7 months. And now we went 6 months, and there's now 5,000 more games. So that means the pace has almost doubled in the last 6 months. This info comes from Valve's Deck Verified program, where games get tested and tagged as verified, playable, unsupported, or unknown. And verified means that it should just work out of the box, like right out of the box on the Steam Deck. And playable means, well, it runs, but it might need some tweaks like manual graphics settings and maybe a keyboard for certain inputs and that sort of thing. And hitting 25,000 compatible titles shows how far Proton and Linux gaming just has come. A few years ago, the idea of tens of thousands of Windows games working on Linux handheld hardware or working on Linux in general would have sounded ridiculous. Like if you go back before Proton, the amount of games we had was significant. We had a good amount of games, but it wasn't anything like it when Proton came out. Now it's basically normal for Steam Deck owners to just have tons of games available to them. In fact, when I first got started with Linux, I don't think there was even 25 games to play. It was a very long time ago, but still, Steam coming to Linux changed everything, and Proton also changed everything. It also shows how serious Valve is about treating the Steam Deck like a mainstream platform. Developers are targeting it, Valve keeps improving Proton, and the compatibility list just keeps growing. At this point, the Steam Deck is one of the strongest proof points that Linux gaming can scale to a mass market audience. And it's just awesome to hear this. And well done, Valve. Thank you, Valve, for making Linux gaming a thing. So for those who don't know, before Valve, the 25 games might be a little bit of an exaggeration. I don't know how many there really were, but it wasn't a lot. It was less than 100, I would bet. Then Steam is announced for Linux, and a lot of games are compatible. They had to be made native, so you still had the limitations of what games were available, but you had an option, and that was fantastic. And then 2018 comes around, and they announce Proton, changes everything. Now, so there are some pros and cons to Proton. One of the cons is that native gaming on Linux is actually more performant than through Proton, just because of not having to translate the Windows tools and Windows layer stuff. But at the same time, it increased the amount of possibilities that games could work on Linux. So it's just fantastic. And now having 25,000 games verified for the Steam Deck, which means, practically speaking, that 25,000 games are verified for Linux in general too. That's not always the case. Some games are made for Steam Deck that don't work on Linux, and that it does happen. But the vast majority of them do work on Linux. And I'm pretty sure Valve even has a requirement that you kind of have to do that now. That could be wrong. I could be wrong about that one. I don't remember. I remember hearing people talk about that, but I don't remember if it actually happened. So we'll just put that on like an asterisk. Someone let me know in the comments if that did happen, because I don't remember. I've covered a lot of news on this show for many years, and I could just be misremembering. Anyway, let me know in the comments. But again, thanks, Valve. Just thanks. Thanks for watching this episode of This Week in Linux. If you like what I do here on the show and want to be kept up to date with what's going on.
Okay, any comments on that? Do you hear anything that you like? Is anybody awake? All right, I'll move on.
And realizing that one of the biggest technology shifts in modern American history is happening almost quietly, without flashy launch events or Super Bowl ads. Across government offices, military departments, public schools, universities, research labs, and even parts of the private sector, Windows systems are being phased out and replaced with Linux-based operating systems. This isn't science fiction, and it isn't some niche experiment run by a few tech enthusiasts. This is a real, measurable trend that has been building for years, and in 2025 it has reached a tipping point. The United States, a country that for decades was synonymous with Microsoft Windows dominance, is increasingly turning its back on Windows and embracing Linux instead. To many people, this sounds shocking, almost unbelievable, but when you look at the data, the policies, the economics, and the security realities of the modern world, the reasons become very clear. For decades, Windows was the default choice for American institutions. It was familiar, it had strong vendor support, and it worked with the vast ecosystem of proprietary software that businesses relied on. Governments standardized on it, schools taught it, and corporations built their workflows around it. But over time, cracks began to show. Licensing costs kept rising, forced upgrade cycles disrupted workflows, and the closed nature of Windows became a growing liability in an era where transparency, security, and digital sovereignty matter more than ever. By the early 2020s, Linux had already taken over servers, cloud infrastructure, supercomputers, and embedded systems. But desktops and workstations were still considered Windows territory. That assumption is now being challenged in a big way. One of the biggest drivers behind this shift is cost, and the numbers are eye-opening. According to internal audits and publicly available procurement data from U.S. state governments and federal agencies, Windows licensing and associated enterprise software costs run into billions of dollars annually. When you factor in upgrade requirements, extended support contracts, and hardware refresh cycles tied to new Windows versions, the financial burden becomes massive. Linux, on the other hand, offers a fundamentally different model. The operating system itself is free, and while enterprise support from vendors like Red Hat, Canonical, or SUSE does cost money, those costs are predictable, negotiable, and significantly lower over the long term. In several state-level pilot programs, switching desktop systems to Linux-based distributions resulted in savings of 30 to 60% over a 5-year period. When scaled nationally, that translates into billions of dollars saved, money that can be redirected toward infrastructure, education, healthcare, or cybersecurity. Security is another major reason the US is moving away from Windows. Over the past decade, Windows has been the primary target for malware, ransomware, and large-scale cyber attacks. This isn't because Windows is inherently bad, but because its massive market share makes it the most attractive target. In 2023 and 2024 alone, ransomware attacks on U.S. hospitals, city governments, and school districts caused billions of dollars in damage and disrupted essential services. Many of these attacks exploited Windows-specific vulnerabilities, legacy systems, or poorly patched environments. Linux, while not immune to security issues, offers several advantages. Its permission model, package management systems, and rapid patching culture make it harder for malware to spread unchecked. More importantly, the open-source nature of Linux allows security agencies and independent researchers to audit the code directly. For government systems handling sensitive data, this level of transparency is no longer a luxury. It's a requirement. There is also the issue of trust. In an age of geopolitical tension, supply chain attacks, and digital espionage, relying heavily on closed-source software from a single vendor poses strategic risks. U.S. policymakers have become increasingly vocal about the need for technological independence and resilience. Linux aligns perfectly with this goal. It is not controlled by any single company or country. Its development is distributed across thousands of contributors worldwide, including American universities, corporations, and government-funded research institutions. By adopting Linux, U.S. agencies reduce their dependence on proprietary black boxes and gain more control over their own digital infrastructure. This shift isn't anti-Microsoft. It's pro-sovereignty and pro-transparency. Education is another area where the Linux transition is accelerating. Public schools and universities across the United States are under constant budget pressure, yet they are expected to teach students modern, relevant skills. Linux has become the backbone of computer science, data science, artificial intelligence, and cloud computing. Teaching students on Linux systems better prepares them for real-world technology careers. Several large school districts have already reported significant savings after switching computer labs to Linux, while also seeing improved performance on older hardware. Instead of buying new PCs just to meet Windows system requirements, schools can extend the life of existing machines by installing lightweight Linux distributions. In 2025, with Windows hardware requirements continuing to rise, this factor alone is pushing many educational institutions to abandon Windows entirely. Then there's the cloud factor. Almost every major US tech company, from Amazon to Google to Meta, runs its infrastructure primarily on Linux. Government agencies increasingly rely on cloud services for scalability and efficiency. Running Linux on desktops and workstations creates a more consistent environment between local systems and cloud servers. Developers, system administrators, and researchers benefit from using the same tools and workflows everywhere. This consistency reduces training costs, minimizes errors, and improves productivity. In contrast, Windows often requires additional compatibility layers, virtualization, or proprietary tools to integrate smoothly with Linux-based cloud infrastructure. Another overlooked but crucial point is performance and stability. Linux systems are known for their ability to run for months or even years without requiring a reboot. Updates can often be applied without disrupting users, and system resources are used more efficiently. In government and enterprise environments where downtime equals lost productivity and lost money, this matters a lot. Windows updates, while improved compared to the past, are still notorious for unexpected reboots, long installation times, and occasional update-related failures. When thousands of systems are involved, even small inefficiencies add up quickly. The statistics from 2025 paint a clear picture. Internal reports and independent surveys indicate that over 40% of newly deployed government workstations in the US are now running some form of Linux or Linux-based operating system. In certain departments focused on research, defense, and cybersecurity, that number exceeds 60%. At the state level, several states have announced plans to transition the majority of their administrative desktops to Linux within the next 3 to 5 years. In higher education, Linux adoption on campus-managed systems has crossed the 50% mark in many technical universities. Even in the private sector, especially among startups and mid-sized companies, Linux desktops are becoming increasingly common. It's also important to address the myth that Linux is too difficult for average users. This may have been true 15 or 20 years ago, but modern Linux distributions are polished, user-friendly, and highly customizable. Desktop environments like GNOME, KDE Plasma, and Cinnamon offer intuitive interfaces that require minimal training. Office productivity is handled by mature software like LibreOffice, which is more than capable of meeting the needs of most users. Web-based applications have further reduced the importance of operating system-specific software. In 2025, the browser is the primary workspace for many jobs, and Linux runs all major browsers, just as well as Windows, often better. Microsoft's own strategy has also played a role in this shift. Over the past few years, Microsoft has increasingly focused on cloud services, subscriptions, and cross-platform tools. Windows is no longer the company's sole or even primary focus. This has left some enterprise and government customers feeling that their needs are secondary to consumer features and cloud integration. Forced online accounts, telemetry concerns, and tighter hardware restrictions have further alienated institutional users. Ironically, Microsoft itself is one of the largest contributors to the Linux ecosystem, using Linux extensively in Azure and supporting open source projects. This reality makes it easier for organizations to justify moving away from Windows without feeling like they are abandoning industry standards. Another major factor is longevity and control. With Windows, users are tied to Microsoft's release schedule and support timelines. When support ends, systems must be upgraded or replaced, regardless of whether they still meet the organization's needs. Linux offers long-term support versions that can be maintained for a decade or more, either through community support or paid enterprise contracts. Organizations can choose when and how to upgrade rather than being forced into disruptive transitions. This flexibility is especially valuable in government and critical infrastructure environments where stability is paramount. There's also a cultural shift happening within IT departments. Younger system administrators and developers are far more comfortable with Linux than previous generations. Many grew up using Linux in school, on servers, or in cloud environments. For them, Linux is not an alternative, it's the default. As these professionals move into decision-making roles, they naturally advocate for systems they know, trust, and can control. This generational change is quietly reshaping technology choices across the country. Critics often argue that Linux lacks support for certain proprietary software, especially in areas like specialized engineering tools or legacy applications. While this is still true in some cases, the gap is narrowing rapidly. Many software vendors now offer native Linux versions, driven by demand from enterprise and cloud customers. For applications that remain Windows-only, virtualization and compatibility layers provide workable solutions. Importantly, organizations are increasingly questioning whether they should remain locked into proprietary tools at all, or whether open standards and open source alternatives make more sense in the long run. When you combine all these factors, cost savings, security, transparency, performance, educational alignment, cloud integration, and strategic independence. The move away from Windows starts to look less like a rebellion and more like a rational evolution. The United States isn't abandoning Windows overnight, and Windows isn't disappearing. It will continue to exist, especially in consumer markets and certain specialized enterprise roles. But its era as the unquestioned default operating system for American institutions is clearly ending. In 2025, Linux is no longer just the operating system of hackers, servers, or enthusiasts. It is a mainstream, trusted, and strategically important platform. The statistics reveal a quiet revolution, one driven not by hype, but by hard numbers and real-world experience. As more agencies, schools, and companies share their success stories, the momentum continues to build. What once seemed shocking is now simply the new normal. The USA isn't just experimenting with Linux anymore, it's embracing it as a core part of its digital future, and that decision is reshaping the technology landscape in ways that will be felt for decades to come. Imagine waking up one morning in 2020.
Any comments there?
Boy, that guy sure is overselling Linux security.
They all do that.
Given the headlines in 2024 and 2025 about massive and widespread attacks against Linux servers, the complacency in the Linux community is just absolutely inexcusable.
Oh, I agree. But it's also a case where even if you're not on a Linux server, you have Unix servers and some Windows servers, and they're almost all as lax in security, let alone privacy and data collection. I mean, gee whiz. Now, some of the articles I've got in the handout also talk about security privacy issues, some of which you can adopt at your choice. And one of them, I think, if I remember right, at least brings up SE Linux, which is a secure environment, but that's extreme and usually only used on servers or some workstations. Also, there are articles in there to put Windows in a virtual machine on Linux for those that only have a few Windows programs they cannot get away from currently. My recommendation, if anybody wants to experiment with it, and I'll play with it as soon as I can, do not install the full-blown Windows. Too much garbage to start with, even though a lot of it will not invade your privacy and send off that much information to Microsoft because it's in a virtual environment, but also you don't need it. You don't need it taking up that valuable space. So I recommend using a debloated, optimized, minimized Windows environment that's still normal looking Windows, and then only installing the programs you cannot get away from, get them set up the way you want. If you have to transfer old data, that's fine too. And you can run a Linux desktop and have Windows running also. And this is where virtual desktops can come in. Your virtual desktop 1 can be your Linux desktop, and virtual desktop number 2 can be showing the Windows environment. Or if you want to do the reverse, in Windows, install WLS. That's a foundation for running Linux live on Windows. Put in a Linux distro. The ones in the store are somewhat limited. Microsoft Mint is not one of them. Ubuntu is the most prevalent one. And bottom line is you can have Linux applications open on the Windows desktop along with Windows applications on the Windows desktop, as long as you got enough memory and horsepower in the CPU, and probably need a GPU to help out in the graphics so that it's not taxing the CPU to render your screens. So virtualization is getting to be a big thing. You can also use WinApps and Boat, and you can also use bottles in Linux to run some of the Windows type applications if you really want to. And those would not be considered a virtual machine, but they are containerized, usually in Docker, like for Windows Boat, and I think also Windows App. This containerization is normal in snap packs and flat packs. It helps isolate software that could possibly have something come in that's malicious through the internet or misbehave, may already contain malware within it, and keep it from infecting the rest of your system. Anything further?
Let me comment on that. I also saw in the last week or so YouTube videos that address this shift toward Linux away from Windows. And one of those, I wish I had actually sent you the URL, Jim. It actually enumerated all the government of the world that are trying and experimenting with moving away from Windows based on the fact that this new AI aspect in Windows 11 taking photographs of the screen. And that means that every government worker in those countries going about their government business, all of that stuff is being transmitted off that country's boundaries, which is quite an affront, apparently.
Well, there's
So
also
I was amazed.
there's
I was-
also movements in a lot of states in the United States here
yeah, and
that
taste
are
too.
also looking into this. They'll at least start doing some limited experimentation to see how things go and what it might take to roll it out more. Massachusetts did have a lot of Linux type software within Massachusetts. I don't know where that stands any longer, but maybe Bob knows.
Yeah, the state of Massachusetts has made a concerted effort to shift at least their government operations, particularly local government, away from Windows and toward open source, including Linux.
Yeah, but there's going to be more states from the sounds of it, at least experimenting with the same concept. How long it takes them to make a significant move, who knows? It'll be a state by state kind of a deal. And how much the federal government is moving, God only knows, but a lot of the contractors that work for the government, especially Defense Department, probably are very heavily invested in Linux base to begin with. And so is the automotive industry with your vehicles.
Well, Tim, one of the most critical systems in the world is the financial system, like stock exchanges and banks. And that's almost entirely on Linux-based systems today, like the New York Stock Exchange. These cannot fail. And the computer vendors that sell into that economic aspect or financial aspect is IBM. And if you look at the IBM website, all their modern mainframes are totally fault tolerant. You can remove and replace every component of the computer while it's still running. And all of those machines are running IBM's version of Linux.
Yeah,
It's
Red
amazing.
Hat. Because they own Red Hat and
Yeah, they
Red
all
Hat
own it.
Enterprise. So, and Fedora is the test bed for some of the changes and debugging of new features before they're put into the Red Hat Enterprise version, which is paid for. You're really paying for the support.
When I remember when IBM was such the king, everything was IBM.
Yeah.
Punch cards, disk drives, everything, operating
Well,
systems. They had their own character encoding and all of that stuff.
I was on IBM stuff myself. I
I
also
mean,
got onto
yeah,
Wang Systems, which were a competitor for the small business market. And I was considered an advanced programmer because I knew how to use an interactive debugger. I learned on my own at work, and I was multilingual on the computers as well. And I knew PCs when most people working for the companies didn't have or know much of anything about desktop PCs.
and of course, my view is that what IBM was in those days, Microsoft has become in the recent times.
Yes.
The people who say things won't change big time, let me tell you, that was IBM's view too. We've got the world by the balls and we're going to milk it for all we got. They're nothing like they used to be, a completely different. Now, they did it very smartly. IBM's still a giant corporation that dominates their market sector, and they did it transitioning very quietly, slowly. And they took all that COBOL mentality out of the business world and brought it into the Linux world. And so I say, with governments in particular wanting out from Windows 11, then I think that's the big thing. And ironically, from the desktop side, the applications which will drive this transition is the things that made Linux and the internet in the first place. Ironically, it's pornography that made Linux or Unix what it is, and gaming. And today, if gaming is somehow revised on the Linux systems, man, that's more than Photoshop as far as keeping people away.
Sure.
And let me tell you, I've followed a little bit about Photoshop because I got a cousin who's in that design area. They've tried, Adobe has tried to get people to go over to a subscription model over the last couple of years, and they have screwed up big time. They have infuriated their most loyal customers who paid big bucks or have paid big bucks to Adobe to use Photoshop and those other things that they have as program products.
Well,
And
see, the
I
thing
mean,
is, the Windows ecosystem, Adobe's ecosystem, and Mac ecosystem or Apple ecosystem are doing their best to make their people reliant upon them,
of
no
course,
matter what
yeah,
happens. And
sure.
the bad part is people are starting to, especially last several months with some of the bad monthly updates from Microsoft. Holy mackerel. I've got one thing I'm going to try and do one more video. We won't get to the other ones here, but I've got something else that I think I should present to you guys.
Linux storage can look intimidating from the outside, but inside it follows a very clean and logical structure. Once you understand how partitions work, how file systems store your data, and how Linux ties everything together inside one directory tree, you'll see the system in a completely different way. This narration is going to take you through all of that.
Now, I'm pausing here for 1 second because I know of some people right now, and especially newbies, they do the easy install of Linux, which is one big partition, just like Windows and just like Mac OS. They don't understand and don't want to mess with partitioning like this. And it's the more efficient way. Recently, I had a Linux system that was unbootable. I rebuilt the UEFI. I rebuilt the bootloader, and I rebuilt the root partition. And I said, I have the home partition and a var partition. Do not format them. Leave them alone. And it rebuilt what I told it to, and it's 100% working again. That's what modularity gives you if you break it out into partitions like we've been trying to do in this group for years, versus the new ones. They just want to do whatever it is they want to do, whether it's playing games only, doing some production, etc. They don't understand that they would have to blow away their old system, but have to use the install media to go in and rescue their home and possibly the var and possibly the USR partitions in Linux that they have that went kablooey, then rebuild it and put those partitions back into the rebuilt system. And that's a lot of extra work. If you put the work in up front in the partitions, it makes the whole process quicker and easier to get back up and running again. That's what I wanted to bring out in this one.
Tim, I have a question.
Step by step.
Yeah.
My experience with Linux installers is that they do have this default way of doing it, but you can go in and you can do your partitioning. But what I don't recall seeing, and I think they should have in there, is why didn't they have a way to say, do you want to do an EFI BIOS? In other words, during the install process, I indicate I want you to build a UEFI mode of operation. Just do it for me. I don't want to have to do it. You go into BIOS and you change whatever it takes such that when I reboot this system, I'm on a UEFI partition or system.
Well, it's a case where some of them, if you don't do a setup right now, they won't let you proceed with the install. You have to, they force you to go back to the configuration and make a UEFI. And in a couple cases, they'll also make you create a boot partition in addition.
But why? Just make that an option. It's one of the steps in the install process.
But they don't script it, and there may be real issues of them going into the BIOS to make whatever necessary changes there are there. Therefore, it's outside the realm of the distributors of Linux to try and do that portion. You've got to know how to do that portion, and then you then have the obligation to learn how to do the partitioning for your own safety. Now
Yes,
there are
and
some
you were very, very helpful because I couldn't have done that on my own.
well now wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. Things change every day. I've already got a couple of versions of Linux that I am playing with, and they do create the UEFI partition, but they don't change the BIOS to use it as secure boot. But they create the Easter egg and not the individual root and boot, home, and possibly other partitions like var. Bob?
When Earl, you talk about going into the BIOS, that is not simple. I just was setting up Linux on my new laptop, and I discovered that the SY BIOS is completely locked down. You cannot add boot entries. You cannot change anything in there. The end user doesn't have any way of getting into the advanced settings. And Linux install can be done, but it will not boot from USB. From a USB enclosure, the only way to boot Linux on that machine is to boot from the shim file, which then leads into the group file. You have to boot from file. And that cannot be made permanent.
I appreciate that there are good reasons for not, or distribution installers not going into that. But let me tell you, that's if you have UEFI, you get in Linux, you get firmware updates, for example, which you won't get in BIOS.
And that does not affect the BIOS on most modern laptops. They are so locked down, you cannot change their firmware. And this is for good reasons. Now, you can completely disable secure boot checks and erase the entire list, and then you can do what you want.
Yeah. Well, when Tim actually came to my house, and we spent hours, and thank God for his experience, it all worked out fine. And I do use UEFI without secure boot, and I do get firmware updates, which I very much appreciate. I got one today, as a matter of fact. But I like the old saying, kids, keep it simple, stupid. If you have to be
but the thing is, I go back to 1995, first intro into Linux, and it took years for me to get to the point where I could get a good running system. Now, the amount of change that has taken place in all that time since then is staggering. But the thing is, it's not an idiot's system, period. They're not going to give you what you're asking for anytime, probably within your lifetime. You're not going to get that simplistic setup, at least not without a very major change in computing hardware to start with. And we're not talking trivial stuff. And so the end result is to have to be able to take a flash drive that you just bought that has the Linux distro you want on it, you stick it in, it takes care of itself, throws itself out there, properly set up, and modifying any entries into the BIOS. Wait for your next incarnation in the human race, and maybe by then you'll start seeing glimmers of that. If you remember
it
this.
means that people will have to buy a computer with Linux installed already, just like they buy.
Well, again, now let's take that argument, okay? First off, you don't have that many out there that have that. There are more and more Linux-centric companies out there. Some of them sell refurbished computers with Linux on it. Other ones get and build their own system, and they all vary as to how much they do. If you take a computer that's sick, say a laptop, into a shop, before you're even out the door, what they most likely will end up doing, other than a cursory check of your system, is blow away everything on the drive, reinstall Windows, and say, when you come back, here's your bill. It's a flat rate of, we'll say, I don't know what they charge now, but I'll say around $80. And it's up to you to reinstall all your programs. It's up to you to have a backup of all your data and put it back on the system, etc., 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 etc. And that's life, because you couldn't afford them to give you all the detail. You're talking probably several $100s for a custom setup, and it takes time. And if a place gets saturated with a lot of people wanting somebody else to do the work for them, they're going to pay through the nose. That's the bottom line. Now, one way around that, I can't think of the name of the college. It's in DuPage County. They had at least once a month people that would go and get into the computers and install Linux for people who wanted and needed it. And I don't know if there was a charge, and even if there was, it was not a lot. But that's because Linux tends to be a volunteer, help other users out kind of base, not like Windows. So bottom line is, you're looking for a utopia that ain't going to happen. Not in this lifetime. Bob?
Two minor comments about that. First of all, yes, there are options to have a computer that comes with Linux, especially if you want Ubuntu. Or if you want one with Zorin, because Tux Machines does those, and there are two other companies that do those. The framework company that I got my computer from, that's a do-it-yourself, so they offer Ubuntu, and they'll pre-install it even. And my last two NUCs could have come with Linux, but I chose no operating system because I want to do it my way.
Well, the other thing there is, okay, you get a source of buying a computer with Linux installed on it. Is it partition or is it the Easter egg? That's the $64 question. If it's partition, that's okay. If it's the Easter egg, you're headed for trouble down the road somewhere along the line. And if you don't know what the heck you're doing, how to save your stuff, you may lose it all.
I know of only one place you can get it done the multi-partition way, and if you're in Massachusetts, and that's an operation run by an Asian couple out in Natick, Massachusetts, west of Boston. They were some of the original people with the Tandies and the fourth language, and they have kept up with open source ever since.
Well,
we also do have install fests in the Boston area, including at MIT. We used to have them. We're trying to start them up again.
Well, it's just a case where what I'm, I guess, trying to get across is that you can set it up the simple way, but sooner or later, you're going to get your throat cut. And if you don't know what you're doing, you won't know how to recover your stuff. And to some extent, that happens in Windows with people who don't do backups.
Yep, there are ways in Linux to back up your home partition, your home. If you want to do it all as an Easter egg, you can just do the home directory, and you might want to back up var if you have a lot of containers, and the rest of it, the programs. Every package manager I know of, you can save marks and then re-import them. And that's about 80 to 90% of what I need.
Well, it varies person to person as to what your needs are, but when it comes to the partitioning setup, it's a case where the more you know about partitioning and why to do the partitioning, the better off you'll be in being able to salvage a damaged system, possibly due to a bad update, and that won't let you boot your system. And that happens. Whether you like it or not, it happens.
Okay, show the video.
And so that's means that you have to um, have the partitioning, learn how to deal with it, so that, and then learn how to rebuild the damaged portion and continue on with life without spending a day or more trying to figure out how to get your system salvaged. Let's see here. Okay. And all right, now let's see. I'm trying to set up here to. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, never mind. All right, I'm gonna stop my share and then open another share, different machine. Let's see here. Got that. Now, let's try this again. Come on. All right. Share. Get out of my way. Get off my screen. And let's see if I can grab a corner. No, I hate it when this thing does it. All right, now, let's see if I can. This is in my way again. Darn it. Okay. I go to other groups in Florida and other parts of the country. Central Florida Computer Society used to have a Linux SIG, and the guy there and me and that used to work together early on when I was setting up a group here. Now, I post, and they probably regret encouraging me to post all kinds of stuff on here And if you want to, you can get into it. But they got like Apple, Android, Linux, Windows in general, and then they got a lot of subcategories. And you'll see that under Windows, I think I appear at least a couple times because I do a lot of posting. Now, once a day, it will say, okay, you weren't into Discord. This is the postings you missed. Anything I post, I do not get feedback on, not directly. Only other people's posts do I see. Everybody else that's in this Discord group is getting all my stuff along with other people's stuff. And Windows here has a whole bunch that I've been putting in here on debloating, all the troubled updates. They recommend removing the hot patch fixes, etc. And if you that's the wrong one. If you're interested in the Discord, at least for this group, I belong to 3 groups right now, or 4. Forgot I added one. Generally speaking, for this one here, the CFC one, you go to Discord itself first, make an account, then go to cfcs.org, and this gives you the ability to join their Discord group. This code that is showing here is changed weekly. So when you go out there, do the code right away to be able to easily get in, because this if you save this key, next week it won't work. So they keep changing it to keep riffraff out of the picture. But for Microsoft, the hot patches, you go to let's see, soft. Microsoft update catalog. Come on. All right, here it is. And that's all you get until you put in a KB number. As an example, KB 507 49, no, wait a minute, 4109, I believe is the correct number. And this gives you potentials in various platforms. You got to look carefully here to get the right one for your hardware base. And because there's an ARM one, and some of these are for, like this one here, 25H2. This is 24H2. And it's for ARM based. This is 24H2 that is x86, x64 based. And the bottom one here is also for 25H2. This is for x86, 64. The first one up here is for ARM. And that's a ARM processor that most of us won't have. So generally speaking, You have to know what they are, know what to download, and get fixes. This is the original update for January 13th, not the fixes. The fixes each have their own KB numbers, and those are the numbers you have to have. And I have posted stuff on the Discord under Windows category, several of the articles, mostly by Brit09, who's based in the UK, and he keeps very, very up to date. Sometimes I'm posting his stuff on the Discord CFCS bulletin board system, as they call it. 2 to 3 or 4 hours just after he posted them. I've even had one or two. He just posted them within an hour, and I'm already posting them again to another site. Why? Because there are a lot of people who are having real serious issues. And some of the issues this time around are seriously affecting businesses and productivity in businesses. And it's getting to be worse than some of the other stuff that has occurred in the past. But December had this stuff, and so did January. And right at the moment, it might behoove you to go in, if you got Windows, to go to Windows Update, and one of them says delay a week. You click on that, it will delay any updates for one whole week. If you click it again, it allows for extending to at least 3 weeks, maybe up to 5. And right at the moment, I would take at least the 3 weeks delay. That way, the February update comes out the second Tuesday of February, and then hopefully it'll be a week after that. We'll know what the problems are with it, if any, and be able to get these hot patches without going out to the update catalog and downloading those and manually installing the hot fixes. So it's a genuine issue. It's a real nightmare. In fact, probably for the very first time, Microsoft has created 2 hot fixes for this 4109 January 13th update in 1 week's time. And they've never done that before. And there could be, before the next update scheduled in February, another hot patch coming. It wouldn't surprise me to have a third hot patch. But these do not come in readily. If you have the option to install updates as soon as they're available, active, turned on, you might get some of these before next month's Patch Tuesday. Otherwise, you will get them on Patch Tuesday to correct the old problems. It's really getting to be bad. And right now, I have even an article in the handout that basically is saying if people are not just trying to move to Linux, they're trying to get away from Windows in many instances because of all the big problems Microsoft seems to be occurring. They're really shooting themselves in the foot. They're not vetting this stuff. And the other comment about the 2 hot patches for 4109 is how quickly they came out. They didn't test before they released 4109, but some testing was going on, found out what some of the problems are going to be, and was already working on the solution that created the now 2 released hot patches. Go figure that one. How would you like to have a business where you release stuff that's horrible and screws up everybody's system and know that it's bad, and you've already got patches in the works and have already released 2 of them that solve many of the problems, but not all. So I don't know what to tell you, folks, but Microsoft, if it were to disappear, God knows if it will or not, it'll be by their own hand. Their own, they're focused on the AI shit so much, and for cloud computing, their Office suite, etc. They don't care about anything else about fixing the problems that they are creating to begin with. And that's one of the biggest uproars going on. Quit messing with the AI and the cloud stuff. Fix the other bugs that you have created first, is what a lot of people are saying. And I'm not joking when I say that. So I don't know how this is all going to hash out. I'm going to see if I can I'm going to make an attempt here to see if I can do the through the chat, the handout. I almost know exactly what's going to happen. Oh, hey, it worked. Good. I don't have to do my alternative. You should be able to see it out there.
I was looking forward to seeing the alternative.
The alternative is to use one of my G Drive accounts and
Yes.
do a shared link that anybody can open.
Yes.
And James, I know you haven't been around much, but go to chat, click on chat, let it come up on the right side, and that you should see my document out there. Bob, I see put some additional information out there, especially for photo P, and there's the vector P, and for my handout, click on it, and it will open up a window. It'll put it in the download folder as a default and give you the title of it. It's up to you whether you want to change that title or not, etc. And you should be able to get it, and it'll keep you busy and off the street corner. Because there's around 140 articles there. The majority of them are videos, but some of them are short videos, and other ones are kind of lengthy. Dennis, do you have yours?
I downloaded it on the Chromebook, but when I click on the download button on the down arrow on the Linux machine, nothing happens, doesn't do anything.
I've never heard it not going down to Windows or a Linux system.
Yeah, I closed chat, I reopened chat, and then, there it is. And then I go to see all the chats. I see that one.
Bob,
Dennis,
do you have
Yes.
the
I've
download?
got mine on the file that Tim uploaded. There's 3 dots on the side.
Okay.
It
Click
says
on that.
more.
Oh, now it says, now there's a download button, and now it's opened up a window to save it.
Okay.
I didn't know,
Okay.
I didn't know on the Linux box I had to click on those three dots. I thought I just clicked on the downward arrow. Huh.
I thought so too, but then it didn't show up with, I was just a half a minute in front of you.
Okay.
Wayne, you got yours?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called Zoom AMD 64.
Pardon?
Mine didn't go where it was supposed to.
Under downloads.
Usually it goes to the download folder.
Eh.
It's
Yeah.
like 284.9.
Unless you change in your browser where to download stuff, the default for almost every browser is the download folder. Now the chat notes, those will end up in documents under a folder called Zoom, and usually
Right.
the first entry is tonight's meeting.
Interesting. I made use of my workspace. I opened up Workspace 3, clicked on Files, and there I see it in Downloads.
Well, James, are you thinking of trying out Linux or what?
Still undecided.
Undecided. What's to decide? You
I
don't.
play games and use AI for information. That's all I do.
A lot of the
Doesn't make much
games.
difference.
A lot of the games are moving from Windows because of headaches that Microsoft is creating, and they are going over to the Linux, just like the first video I played. Now, some of them under Steam, they have the Proton. Proton is a advanced, tweaked version of Wine, and when they iron out their problems with what they developed in the tweaks, they pass them on to the Wine committee to incorporate in general Wine. But there's also, and that's an emulation, not an emulation. Wine is not an emulator, but it's a translation layer that's near native execution of a Windows game. If you have Xbox 360 as an example, and you have games on the CDs, first off, they're encoded, and the Xbox has a specialized version of DVD player in there. You have to have that and an adapter cable to be able to run those same programs on a Linux with an emulator. And an emulator slows things down some, so it's not as efficient as native running. But Steam seems to really be steaming along with the amount of games that are already transferred. Triple A games aren't there yet, or at least not all of them. And so those quite often require a expensive GPU card anyhow. And most people on Linux are not using extensive GPU cards. So it depends on what games you're playing. You have to go look to see if what you're playing is available. If you
Well, the
don't,
games I play use the solitaire and a couple of mind games. That's about it. Match games, rather. Numbers and symbols.
well,
Real simple ones.
there's what they're saying is Steam right now is up to 25,000 different games, and most of them are not the real high-end games. And if you take, you can get controllers like from a PlayStation or from Xbox, and through Bluetooth connect them to a PC running Linux and Steam, and play advanced games. I've got some games I'm thinking about seeing if I can revive them that go back to DOS days. And they do require a joystick. You can't run them without a joystick. So it's something to think about. It's a learning process. You don't give up what you have. You leave that damn thing alone. You always take a computer that isn't being used, even if you have to buy a used one at a garage sale, at Goodwill, or something like that, cheaply, and you use that to experiment with Linux on. That's how you get into Linux, is experiment with it and learn as you go. And when you get enough knowledge, then you start doing other things, such as gaming and or other work on the computer.
You down here talking to yourself?
I'm online.
Oh. Oh,
I guess it's time to go. I'll see you Thursday, I hope.
Thursday?
Thursday night. Is there a meeting Thursday night?
This is the last meeting of the month from CCS.
There was an email that went out that said Thursday, but I don't think that one's correct, James.
Okay, next time I see one,
that was last month. In the month of December, we would have a Linux meeting during the week of Christmas, and nobody would show up, including me. So Ed Keating doesn't do a December meeting, so I steal his Thursday date for December only. So that's where Thursday comes from. And it's was the third Thursday, because that's when Ed Keating normally has his meeting. But it's once a year.
Well, no, Tim, there was an email that came out to me, and my wife got it too. Came out 3 days ago, January 24th, 3:54 p.m., that said there's a Linux SIG meeting this Thursday. It says Thursday.
Yeah, that was the one with the wrong day on it.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what James is seeing. Yeah.
But anyway,
well,
yeah,
that could be too, and it's just a case where in December we change it from Tuesday to Thursday, and then because it's in the same week as the Windows Office and AI meeting on Tuesday, third Tuesday, and then it's a possibility that I didn't change Thursday to Tuesday for the January meeting announcement.
yeah. So a corrected one was sent out.
Okay. Well, that's the funny thing too. It was sent out so many times because Beata kept getting a feedback from Xfinity. There were about 20 people, including myself, Bert Good, our VP, not getting it. But both I and Bert got all of them. So, whatever.
the download that you gave us, I get something that says Zoom AMD 64.
Wait a minute. What Zoom 64? What are you referring to?
When I do this, when I look at my download folders, or I just downloaded.
Well, Zoom should be on version 6.7.2 and has been for several weeks now, which is surprisingly long.
Wayne, the file that Tim put for us to download is called CCS January 26 Linux SIG articles.rtf.
I can't find it.
Did you
It's
click
in the
on
chat.
the file the thing itself by itself there?
I look on the downloads and I don't have
No,
it.
No.
go back to the
Go back to
the
chat in the Zoom
back-
meeting.
And I
Click
got
on chat.
click on the
PCS January 26th Linux SIG article.
Yes. Now
No,
you
no. Oh.
download that. It should
Yeah.
open up a window saying download folder. And if you hit the save button, it'll save it to the download folder.
Uh,
And then when you open that up, you have the equivalent of a more FYI that's bigger than a more FYI.
when I click on the hamburger thing, it says download.
Do that. Click on that.
And I click download and I don't see anything.
Are you on a Windows machine?
No, I'm on a Linux.
Oh, you're on Linux. Okay. Yeah, it should be the three little dots at the bottom of the chat. And it should open up download option and be able to download that. Click on the actual file in the listing, then go down to the three buttons and click on download and see if it'll download.
I click on, no, that all I can get is, oh, here. When I click on the hamburger thing, it says download.
Okay.
Click
So
download. I don't see anything anywhere.
Wayne, click on the file name itself.
Nothing happens. Says,
what I did was I clicked on the icon, which should have a W in it, and it starts out with a blue circle. And when I get a pop window that lets me select where it goes, I would select downloads.
I don't see any of that.
Oh.
Oh, crap. Now, I get some sort of a thing that it's a Zoom AMD 64.
Nope,
No.
It's a folder.
that's not it.
No,
That folder has nothing to do with this.
Maybe Wayne could share a screen.
here, let me show you here.
Yeah, show your entire desktop if you're going to do that.
Where are we at? Select the window you want to share. Okay.
The whole desktop.
This is what I get under downloads.
No. Oh, go
Or not.
go back to the chat in the Zoom.
Oh, keep the share up.
Here,
Keep
let
the,
me
keep the share up and go back to the chat.
go to the share here. You go to the chat. Where's the chat at? Here.
Share the screen.
Here. Share.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, you've got downloads highlighted, but you haven't saved it yet.
where do I save it?
Just keep that
Go back to
downloads
the Zoom
highlighted.
window.
Isn't there a button that says save?
I'm
Well,
seeing
wait a
it.
minute. No, he doesn't have it there yet because up at the top it would be the name of the file, and there's nothing there.
Okay, what you need to do then is to close that window.
Close that one window. That's your file manager. Close it.
Let me where am I at here? I'm not doing something right here.
And I don't know. He's
Something screwed up. Let me stop the share here. Okay.
open up the chat first
Let me
from
do
Zoom. click on chat at the bottom. Just like the share. Click on chat and share it. No, see, you're not getting open up the chat.
X that window. X that bar. Far right hand side, just go over an X.
Okay, right hand side.
And
Close
I
the
don't
file window, Wayne. Close the files window.
and
You
I
want
don't
to
see you opening up chat.
Paste.
You're not opening up the chat. Zoom, the chat is in Zoom.
Yeah, the chat's in Zoom.
Well, then you weren't sharing your whole desktop because we never saw Zoom.
Yeah, we don't see the chat, and we don't see the Zoom either.
We're not seeing your Zoom.
Well, he's got. Hang on a minute. Let's hold on 1 minute. On the right side of your screen there, it says something about Wayne sign out. That's something to do with a browser. Close the browser for the time being. Up in the right corner.
There. That, you
Close
had
it.
it
Close
there.
it.
Click that blue X.
Okay. Now, close these two windows also.
Close this here.
You got a bunch of file management open that you don't want or need at this point. Hold down the Alt key and hit F4.
Hit which key?
Hold down the Alt key and hit F4.
Alt key and hit forward.
F4. F4.
function key F4.
Oh, function key F4.
Once we do that, I see something on your taskbar that you can use.
That's.
But let's get this closed.
Let me stop share here.
Keep doing the Alt F4. We're trying to get all that garbage off your screen.
Try to get, okay.
If you don't get it off your screen, you're screwed up. It's bad time.
I don't know what this AL companion's doing here.
Do you know you got two Alt keys on the computer? It doesn't matter which one you hold down with one finger and hit the F4 key. It closes the top window, period.
Okay, here. Yeah. We'll go to chat.
Click
Wait.
chat. It opens up a column on the right side of your screen, a whole column.
Let me get to the desktop here and share. Okay, now I go over to.
Okay.
Right, that's cleaner.
Wait a minute. Shared content. Okay.
That's it.
No, that's not right.
Open the Zoom with the button on the bottom.
Wait a
You're
minute.
sharing your desktop.
No, he's sharing a
application.
desktop. Yeah, he's sharing a desktop. So it's the controls at the top. There's a chat at the top of the screen.
Yeah,
Click it.
there we go. Okay, now what do I do here? I go to this. Says
We
All
can't
I
see-
see is black.
Yeah, we're seeing black. We don't see any content.
Well, you're not sharing your screen. You're sharing your desktop as an application. But I don't know. That may be all you can do on your computer.
I don't know.
Wayne, do you have the Zoom window open to full screen right now?
I don't have anything Zoom. Oh wait, I've got the chat open on the right side.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now
So
share.
move the mouse to
Go to
the
share.
W in the lowest section of the chat.
Now when I go to share, all it does is shows desktop one.
No, don't do share. Don't do share.
Not desktop.
Just take the mouse and go over and click the W in the chat drop in the chat field.
Yeah, and nothing happens. Nothing's happened when I click on it.
Email it to him.
Try sharing
You
the
have a-
screen so we can try and see it.
How do I share that so you can see this?
Your share should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen.
Okay, and I click on share.
And just hit the share button at the bottom. Okay. Now, you got a file open again, but
Hit the cancel on this window.
On the
Not the
bottom.
bottom.
On the
On the
bottom.
bottom.
Oh,
On the bottom, hit the cancel.
cancel. Okay.
now up at the top, click on chat.
Okay.
We can't see the content. And where it's opening up a screen is not normal. It would be on the right side of the screen.
Now it's going up in the center of the screen here.
What's
I
it
don't-
say on that screen? We can't see it.
You can't see anything, can
No,
you?
it's just a black square.
Well, when I clicked on the chat, it comes up in the center of my screen here.
That's unusual because it's not in the normal place for chat. Chat
Oh,
goes
hey,
in a right column.
How can we clear out all of the black on his screen?
I'm
One
gonna
step at a time.
let me stop sharing here. Okay.
It's probably Zoom settings that are not correct. That's the best I can suggest.
And something's screwed up. I don't know.
Jim,
Yeah,
why don't you just send Wayne the file up via email?
I'll probably have to.
Let me try share here. All you get when I try to share the thing, all you get is my black screen. There. Now, when I go to chat, can you see anything on my screen?
No,
It's all black.
except for your desktop icons.
That's all screwed up. I don't know.
Maybe one of us could do chat and share and let Wayne see it. We're looking how it should look.
Well,
Hang on a minute here. All right. Now, I got to get mine out of the way. And I want to close that too. Now, come up here. Come on. Chat. Here's what you're seeing.
A black box.
right.
See this? That's what you're trying to download. See that little button there? You click it.
No, it's black.
I don't see anything.
It's all black.
It's all black.
Black.
You're right. I'm looking at now another screen. This screen is showing the chat as a rectangle. And it says Linux SIG at the top. It shows some of Bob's or Earl's postings. And then you have below that CCS January Linux SIG article. And
Hello?
to the
Yeah.
right on that same rectangle is a little tiny square that's got a arrow pointing down and an underline under the arrowhead.
All I have is a black square. Totally black.
Oh,
And
okay, Tim, I'm sharing. Let me try sharing for the
All right.
first time.
Hang loose. I gotta move this.
Okay, I'm going to try sharing.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
This is not how I expected this to all end.
Okay.
Okay, we can see your download, well, your folder for the file manager, but the rest is all black squares.
Right.
Something screwy here.
Okay, let me.
Hang on, I got one other idea. Hang loose for a minute. End your share.
Stop share. Okay.
Okay, hang on. Hang on. Let's see what happens here. Okay, got that. Got that. Got that. And it's not showing that.
Now, when I click next to this,
Wow. I'm doing this one from Windows 11 and it's just a black screen is all you're seeing.
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what's going on, but there's I would say a Zoom bug here.
Now, when I go on to chat next to the CCS Gen 26 Lin SIG article, there's a little box with an arrow down and an
Yes.
underscore.
Click on that
Yeah.
little download arrow.
Nothing happens.
Now look to the right of that arrow, and do you see three little dots after the file
Yep.
name?
And when I click on that, it says download.
Then click on the download.
When I click
So
on
then
down,
download.
I don't see anything.
Nothing else pops up. It should pop up your file manager so you can see where it's going to put it.
Down below, save as. Save
Yeah.
as. Okay, so I should put
It should already title it at the top.
Does it have a drop download to tell you what folder to put it into?
yeah, CCS.
Do this, just say, just go yes for the save as.
Well, we got a new bug. Oof.
Linux SIG 22726. There we go. Now when I hit on that, that should have SIG'd it. Download complete. Excellent. Okay,
yeah.
Now hit,
that's what the
now
problem
find
was.
your downloads folder.
Yeah, now I found.
Now just make sure it's there.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do here. Yep. Okay. What happened, it was showing up on when I clicked on that download, it came up on the bottom of my bottom screen, the very bottom where it said save, and I didn't see that.
Oh,
In the center, on the very bottom, that's where it was showing up save. Okay.
all right.
Very good.
Is this the first time you tried to save on the Linux box, Wayne?
No, I've got stuff back in 25, 22, 23.
Yeah, I have a feeling, especially because of it showing up black boxes, not showing the content. There's a bug of some kind in
Well,
the.
I just updated to Linux 22 today from 21.3.
Okay, I have a
hope it's
different Linux.
22.3.
And I was
Yeah,
hoping-
I have a different Mint, which is Mint 22.3.
well,
My share may look different.
right. I'm going to upgrade. I didn't have time to upgrade from 22 to 22.3, so that's on my agenda next.
It's a
Yeah, but 22
easy
should
thing.
work.
Just go to in your Mint to Systems Report, and then go to Systems Report, and then go to File, 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 and then go to F and it should give you the option of doing an upgrade to 22.3 and tell it to go ahead. One of the screens, after about 3 or 4 next buttons, you have to put a check mark into an almost invisible tiny square and then hit next button and it'll start going.
So where do I go now to begin with?
Pardon?
Where do I go?
You go to Systems Reports. You go to your Start button. You go up to the search bar there in the Start button. Type in SYS, and one of the options will be Systems Report.
And I type in system,
Yeah.
I get system settings and system monitor.
Should also have System Report.
Nope, not in there.
What version of Windows do you have? I mean, Linux?
22.
Will you be the first one not to have System Report, because that's a feature
Uh,
that goes way back.
Okay. There we go. Running system check.
Yeah, it's got to do a check, and one of the options should be to upgrade to 22.3.
Okay.
And you'll have to go next button about 3 or 4 times, and then you got to see a little tiny square that you got to put a check mark in on a screen before hitting next again, and it'll go ahead and do the update.
Yeah, here it says a new version of Linux Mint is available. Upgrade to Linux 22.3. So I click on that. Yeah,
We're
okay.
not going to do it live.
Looks like that's what I can do then. Okay,
Tim,
very good.
Tim,
See everybody later.
Tim,
Yes?
this won't affect anything but the folders that are in that the system is into, right?
Pardon
The
me?
update, the update will only affect the system folder
It only
Not
affects the
true.
root.
root.
Yeah.
Bob, what did you say? Not true?
Not true, because this update changes the entire Cinnamon desktop environment,
Right.
and it requires a reboot.
Yes. Now, but what I'm saying is it only changes what's in the root. That's where your operating system is at. It does not change anything in the home folder.
Right.
Or the other partitions, correct?
There are other partitions that will be changed
It's somewhat, yeah.
in some setups.
It depends upon what other folders you have broken out. Home folder is the main one, and it will not itself change. Some of the content might have minor changes that are related to the operating system, but not the content. We've been doing this particular kind of an upgrade for how many years now? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
It doesn't change that. It changes the operating system itself to the newer version, and not everything changes within the root. Only some of it changes that needs to be updated.
Yeah, there will be a whole bunch of packages. That's all that it did to me. This is not a major version upgrade.
The biggest 2 issues that I know of are the start menu. It changed its look and feel. The other one is to deal with more perfection of the Wayland if you're using the Wayland. As a host, I'm still using X11, but when I'm not hosting, I may use the Wayland quite a bit.
Yeah, it says this is called Xena.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Z-E-N-A. Z-E-N-A.
Right.
So it changes the root, doesn't change the home?
No,
No,
your
never
directory very
has.
seldom gets changed by these
None of
things.
them change that unless you're in the Easter egg. Then
I'm not in the Easter egg. I'm not
well,
in the Easter egg. I'm
then
just trying to make sure that I don't have to
it
worry about
doesn't.
my
It'll change
media and
next
other
to
files.
nothing in the home folder unless it's related to the system. It will only change those things. Everything
Okay,
else that's
okay.
yours is considered sacrosanct. So
Yeah, there's only a few things that ever get into the home directory that would be upgradable, which would include if you had any snaps, but we don't.
yeah. Now, if you were on, if you were under Ubuntu, it's all snaps, and unless you activate Flatpaks, everything else uses Flatpak unless you also activate Snap Packs.
Yeah, but anyway, in Mint, yeah, your home directory stays very safe during
Okay, so I have
a minor
an
update.
extra directory on the hard drive that's shared amongst all three users.
Right.
So what?
That's called video captures.
it
I want to
doesn't-
make sure it's not going to touch that.
It cares.
No, you're safe.
It,
You're safe.
It
Okay,
cares
okay.
nothing about outside the operating system. Period.
Yeah, that's user data. You're safe.
Okay, okay.
Now this is obviously not the big thing. Like when I went from 21.3 or whatever it was to 22, that took an hour or two.
That's
'cause
different.
Yeah.
That's an upgrade. That's a major upgrade.
that was
In
amazing.
somewhere between April and July, we should get version 23.0.
20.
That's a major
Yeah.
upgrade.
Yeah, that'll be
That
amazing.
has
Yeah.
that doesn't go through the same upgrade you're going through now in system report. You have to download a Mint upgrade and then execute the Mint upgrade from a terminal, and it will then replace again just the operating system. It doesn't give a damn about your stuff. It doesn't exist to the operating system. It just happens to sit there on the same storage. There is no
Okay.
such thing as a clean install except from installable media. If you run that install from the installable media, that's a clean install.
Okay. I think we beat a dead horse.
I think you guys owe me OT.
How about just a big thank you, Tim?
With $10 million cash. Nothing bigger than a $20 bill.
You
You'll
know
receive
what?
the,
It's down at 3,000 feet between Maui and Lanai. That's minus 3,000 feet in elevation.
Yeah, I think
Boat out there.
I think you're
There's a
having
boat out
problems
there.
with the altitude and thinning air.
No. You're underwater. Minus 3,000. Not plus. No air. The yellow submarine that sank after the fire.
Well, then it became a Mount Baldy after the fire.
No, it's underwater. The submarine was in the water. No Mount Baldy.
Are we about done
No,
here,
whatever.
or what?
Yeah.